Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Between Sessions with Berries. We have a very cool guest today, Ashley Comegys. Comegys. I told her I was going to mess her name up. Comegys. Oh, my God. We even practiced it. Okay. Okay. Today, we're talking to a therapist, Ashley, who's deeply familiar with the unique challenges and triumphs of being a mom in private practice. She's a licensed clinical social worker and the owner of a multi-state online therapy practice for women. As a military spouse and host of the Therapist Mom podcast, she speaks honestly about motherhood, building a portable practice, and questioning the outdated rules that can make our lives harder than they need to be, right? Oh my gosh, we could talk about that all day. Ashley is here to share her wisdom on everything from maternity leave to marketing to online practice and how to build a business that truly fits your life. Ashley, thank you for being here today.
It's so good to be here with you. I always love chatting with you, Kim.
Thank you so much. So you're a therapist, a mom, a military spouse, a podcast host. How do you juggle all those roles, and what does a typical day look like for you?
So I don't think that there is such thing as a typical day for me.
Yeah, I bet.
If we're being honest, we were talking at the beginning. This is like the third attempt to record this episode because my life has been busy with children getting sick or myself getting sick because I have kids. So, if there's any moms that are listening to this, like what does a typical day look like is a really hard question to answer because it depends on what is going on with the rest of the people in your family. But for me, if it is a day where there's no hiccups, it's getting the kids out the door to school, getting back home, trying to center myself after the chaos of school drop-offs and the morning routines, and then getting into seeing clients. I have structured my day so that I have space between that drop-off before my first client to just kind of regulate myself out of the chaos that is that. And then I usually see a total of 4 clients a day, occasionally 5 if I have to move some stuff in my schedule. And then I'm done seeing clients by 3 because that gives me time to just finish up admin, then get into transitioning to like preparing for everybody to be home.
Oh my gosh.
And then, going into the night routine. So I try to structure my week of only seeing clients like 3.5 days a week. And then the other days are for other projects, other admin work, other appointments that are required of being a woman and a mom, right? So it's busy. It's busy.
I could not, every time I talk to somebody that's got kids, I'm like, I literally do not know how you do this. And then I've known you for a while, like having all these other things, the podcast and just all the other things that you're putting out into the world. I don't know. We have a grandchild now and he's here for like 4 hours and we're ready for a nap. Like we're tired.
Right. Like I'm surviving on caffeine, right? Yeah. Like it's we're making it work. But I've been thinking about this a lot lately, that this idea of private practice and motherhood. And I very much have gone into private practice because I've become a mom and because I married somebody in the military and I needed that flexibility. But I also think if we're honest, it's not like private practice is this magic wand that like you're out of like the larger system that doesn't really support mothers and now everything is better, right? There's still the challenges of like having the family running the business, but it gives me flexibility to be able to move things around, right? So like if I have a kid who's homesick, if I need to cancel a client, I get to make that choice. It's not like, well, somebody else is telling you still have to come in, or I can move them to like a different day and time that works for me. So there still are the challenges that come with being a business owner, having a family, having kids, but it gives me the flexibility to choose that you don't other ways in other kinds of jobs when you really are working for somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. I have so many questions just about the military spouse piece of it. So how many times have you guys had to move with this practice and the kids? And has it been many times or?
Yes.
So and you're like, yeah.
Yeah. So I had my career before I met my husband. I had gone through grad school, was living and working in New Orleans. And we got married and moved to Hawaii. And I started the private practice when we got there because I couldn't find a job.
Okay.
And I couldn't find work. And, back in grad school, a professor had kind of said, the LCSW is great because if you can't find a job, you can always go into private practice. And I was like, well, that makes sense. Like private practice was never like the end goal for me, but it really happened for me. Like I couldn't find a job and I started private practice. And I ended up like with a couple other therapists starting a group practice. So it wasn't all on me, but I was still doing kind of like my own side practice with some clients back in Louisiana still, and then seeing Hawaii. So then we moved from Hawaii back to Louisiana. So that's one move. And then we moved to Florida and now we're in Virginia. So I moved 3 times with the practice. It wasn't until we moved from Hawaii back to Louisiana that I went the route of completely online therapy practice. I'd had a baby at that point, and it was this question of like chicken or the egg. Do I find a job and then hope I can find childcare? Do I find childcare even though I don't have a job to pay for it? And the thought of like going back and working for somebody else, at that point, I already for 3 years had worked for myself. Yeah. And I was like, I just don't want to do it. I don't want to give up my time and my flexibility. But the thought of like starting a practice and then shutting it down every 3 years when we moved, I was like, that also doesn't sound fun.
Yeah.
And I had been doing some online therapy work in Hawaii. I actually had done a little bit of it back in like 2014, 2015, right after I got my LCSW. One of the bigger platforms was just like a text, like you texted kind of with their clients at that point. So it was just starting to dip my toes into it.
Yeah.
And when we moved to Hawaii, I did start doing online work with people in Louisiana, a few in Hawaii. And so when we got this other move back, I'd had a baby, the light bulb was just like, well, wait a second. If you already are doing online work, and this is the start of 2019, so like COVID's not happened.
Yeah.
Like you already know how to do this. Why not just do it all online? And then you can continue to work, regardless of where we live. And so that has been the best decision and like the biggest blessing, because I think it's around like 22% of military spouses are unemployed. And it's a real struggle for us when we move to have jobs or to find employment or to move up in our careers, not laterally. And this has not been a problem for me since I started this. Like with every move, I've had to take time off. And so I'm just so grateful for that this has given me the ability to continue to grow and expand in my career. And I'm making that choice, not somebody else saying like, well, we're going to have to let you go, or you're not qualified, or we know you're only going to be here for a certain amount of time. Like I get to decide that for myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And it sounds like too, you were able to like bypass the daycare thing. Like you're able to like work your schedule so you can be there with the kids and not have to. I mean, I know there's different reasons, like it's expensive or whatever, or I just want to raise my own kid, like that kind of thing, and to be able to have that flexibility, I think our profession's amazing that we can be so flexible with our lifestyles. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I, like when I first was starting, it was the start of 2019 when I was like, okay, I'm going all in. I'm doing the private practice thing. Like I said, I had already built it, had literally shut it down completely, like got rid of the website maybe 6 months before this. And I was like, okay, we're going to start though from like a better place. And I like figured out I had my first child napped incredibly. I knew I could get a 3-hour window in the afternoon. Wow. So I would schedule like strategically 2 clients for that time of day. And then I was also seeing clients really late at night because a lot of them were in Hawaii. And we just made it work until then. Like, okay, I'm getting some more momentum. And then like had a babysitter that we hired to come in. And then eventually I was like, no, like I'm going to be going more full time with this. And then eventually did the daycare route. So it didn't have to be this, I'm completely in 2 places at one time. Yeah. There was a build up to it and it's worked for us.
That's amazing. So did you get licensed, like you said, Florida, Hawaii, and Virginia, did you get licensed in each state at all? Or you just use the licensure back in Louisiana?
So I'm also in Colorado too. We've not lived there, but I've had clients who I work with a lot of military spouses, and I have had some move there. And Actually, other clients that are not military have eventually moved there. So it was an easy process. I decided to add that several years ago. So I do have that one too.
Nice.
But no, I have had to add a license with each state.
Okay.
There are some loopholes is not the right word, but like graces given to military spouses in that like they may waive the fee or they may bump you to the line for processing or they give you like a year grace period before you have to submit. But in order to practice, I have had to apply to each of those states. You know, once we retire or my husband retires, I may let go of some of the licenses or maybe the social work compact will be like fully enacted and easier.
That'd be nice.
By that point. But yeah, so I have 5 licenses now that I'm having to manage. And
Wow. And different time zones and everything.
Yes.
Now
Yes.
that's a whole, like we could do a whole.
yes. Oh, for sure.
These listeners might not know. I have a whole nother podcast called The Traveling Therapist that like, I mean, the time zone thing is just
Yes.
its own episode.
100%. 100%. Yes.
Because you're what? East Coast? Whatever Hawaii
So
time
I have
is.
East Coast, Central Time, Mountain Standard, and then I have Hawaii.
Oh my God.
And Hawaii, so like when we're recording this, we're coming up on like the time change. So they don't change. So sometimes you're 5 hours, sometimes you're 6 hours. So like there's a lot of math. I don't know what you use. Clocker. Are you familiar with that app?
I've never used that.
So you can download it on, I have a Mac. You can download it on your Mac. And right now, like up at the top of my desktop, it shows like Honolulu. It's Thursday and it's 10:17. So you can open, when you click on it, whichever time zones you want to look at, it'll show you. And as you move this slider, so you're like, okay, I want to look, if it's 1 o'clock in my time and we're trying to schedule an appointment for 1 o'clock in my time zone, because I know that I have that opening. All right. So in, Louisiana, where you are, it would be noon. So it just helps you to see like what are all the different time zones at one time.
Oh my God. It makes my brain hurt just thinking about that.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you schedule
I wouldn't
them?
be able to do it without that.
No. But I guess your EHR, right? It probably schedules them in their time zone.
Yes.
Is that, okay. And then you
Yes.
just have to pay attention to when do I need to be here for this appointment.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay,
I just am
gotcha.
telling them this is my appointment time. I use Jane. And so I can put in what the client's time zone is, or they put it in themselves. So their appointment reminders go out in their own time zone. And I'm just
That's
keeping
awesome.
track of like, what is my time?
Love it. We love that kind of technology here at Barry's.
Yes. Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so you've got that part figured out. I feel like you and I went online at the same time. Like, were we in like step by step together, like Amber Lida's?
I was not in her program, but I was adjacent to it.
Okay, you were Jason. I feel like that's when I met
Like
you.
in that therapist Facebook group, and like you came and like did a talk for like a course I have on online therapy, and like yes, we were like both building around the same time.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. All right. So let's talk about the maternity stuff in your podcast. What inspired you to start the Therapist Mom podcast? I want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
Let people know.
I have 3 kids, 2 years old to 8 years old, and I have taken 3 maternity leaves in private practice now. Like I said kind of at the beginning, what I've realized is that private practice has allowed me to have that flexibility that I need as a mom. Like a couple weeks ago, I'm getting ready to see clients. The school calls, the kid has a fever, throw up in the hallway. I've got to go, right?
Yeah.
And I'm able to reschedule and adjust as I need. And as I was building my own practice and talking with other clinicians who, are friends, colleagues, and listening to them struggle with like I only have so many sick days left and like it's January, right? Like I've already had to call out because my kids are sick and now I'm sick. I'm sure you've gotten this before too. People are like, well, how do you do a practice? Like, how do you do this?
Yeah.
It just lit this fire in me of like, I really want to help other moms with this because it gives that flexibility that you need as a mom, but also that working in like traditional job settings does not afford us. I remember friends taking maternity leaves, like they worked as social workers in the hospital setting and coming back at 6 weeks and them just like being devastated that they had to do that. And I didn't have kids yet at the time, so I didn't fully understand it, but I was like, that does seem early. And having had my own children, and I remember reaching that 6-week point postpartum and thinking like, I could not imagine having to go back at this point.
Yeah.
And so knowing that we live in a country that does not provide maternity leave like a lot of other countries do, does not really support that. I was like, well, I need to build something that allows me to do that on my own terms. And I really want to help other women do the same.
Yeah.
So the Therapist Mom podcast, it actually got a rebranding this past year. It used to be called the Raised to Empower podcast. Still the same topics, still the same content, but just trying to help make it clear, like, this is who I'm trying to work with, right? I'm trying to help our fellow therapist moms that, again, it doesn't mean that we're not still struggling to work in this world that doesn't support motherhood, but this is one of the ways of saying, well, like, I'm going to do what works for me. I'm going to create something and a strategy and a system that works for me that, you know, going to work and building somebody else's business just doesn't afford me. So it's been a really fun, project's not the right word, but just like experience. Like I don't know how you feel, like I love podcasting and I love getting to talk with other women like about what they're doing. It is. And just recognizing like we need more spaces as women and definitely as therapists of like supporting each other and lifting each other up. We can be really judgmental and tear each other down.
Don't get me started. Yeah.
And so that's what I try to also do on that podcast is have guests on, have other women who are doing cool stuff in this space and just like learning from each other and supporting one another.
I love that so much. So if there is a therapist listening, right, and maybe they're in private practice and they're thinking like, I would love to have a family one day, but it just seems like, how the heck would I do it? Do you have strategies, tips, suggestions to let them know it's possible to manage this whole thing? Can we just like deep dive into that stuff a little bit for somebody listening that is like, I just don't know how I would see like 30 clients or whatever I need to do and have kids and do all of that. Maybe we could just do that a little bit.
So we'll have it linked in the show notes, but I do have a resource that people can grab. It's a free resource. So I've talked on my podcast about taking maternity leave in private practice, how to plan for it, what does it look like in each of the 3 trimesters, because it feels different, like working in it. At least that's been my experience. And when I've talked with others, I think it's the same. So there'll be a link in the show notes where you can grab this. It's like a playlist from the podcast, and there's other resources listed in that as well. If you are saying like, I know I want to have children, I'm not there yet, you know, whether it is in the future or whether we're, you know, in the process of family planning, being able to just kind of strategically think ahead, putting money aside, right? Like what, you know, you don't have to have it all figured out, but thinking about like, how can I be preparing financially? Because if you're not seeing clients, you're not making money. And I have a mini course called the Maternity Leave Blueprint that talks about this of like, what are ways that you can strategize financially? There are things that you'll be able to cut back on overhead wise in your practice, right? You may be able to step down your EHR to a lower tier. You may not have to have certain subscriptions during that time. But I think recognizing that what one person's maternity leave looks like isn't necessarily what somebody else's is going to be like. And that is okay. There are women who they're like, I was ready to go back at 6 weeks seeing my clients because my baby would sleep, or I had somebody that was caring for my baby at home. And so I could go nurse or I could go feed them and then come back and see clients. And that's great. And there are those of us who I was like, I was barely ready to come back at 6 months. So just recognizing that the way you operate your business before bringing a child into your family, it will change, but that also doesn't mean that you're going to lose your practice, that it's going to be falling apart. I think a lot of times I've seen people who are preparing for maternity leave so stressed about like, are my clients going to come back? Am I still going to have a practice when I come back? And in my experience, if you prepare your clients for what's to come of what does maternity leave look like, meaning what is available to them, what is not available to them, what might it look like coming back after you're back from maternity leave, a lot of them wait and they're ready to come see you. So
Yeah.
it can be scary to say, like, I'm taking this pause. I'm not going to be working, especially after you've worked so hard for this business. And I learned this like in so much deeper way after my third. If you are not ready to come back because you're struggling through whatever that transition to motherhood, postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, just stress, overwhelm, if you're not okay, it's going to be really hard for you to show up for your clients. So that's where I love helping other women figure out, like, how can you build as much as you can for this maternity leave, because you don't know what that other side after the baby comes is going to look like. And I just don't want you to have to rush back if you're not ready.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's got to be the worst. Even like maybe some postpartum stuff and just not ready emotionally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, and I know, like, for us as military too, right? Like, we don't have support a lot of times around where we are. And so I know of other military spouses who also have online practices. And it's the same thing where you're like, I am trying to figure this all out, a new baby, a business, and I don't have the support. So just thinking through those things, like, who can be your support system, whether you are military or not, who can be your support system, whether it is a colleague, whether it is a friend, whether it is family, you know, for that after time, that if you're like, I'm not ready to come back, or I'm just needing more space, or I'm needing that support, whether it is in your practice or just in motherhood, that you know kind of like where you can reach for that.
Wow. Now, do you ever consider, or I mean, maybe this is just me thinking that this would matter. Like, does a niche matter? Like, if you know that you want to have 3 kids in the next 10 years or something, would it be like strategic to pick a niche maybe that wasn't like trauma intensive, or like where your clients were maybe a little more risky, I guess, for if you were to just take off for like 3 months or something like that? What are your thoughts about that? I'm just curious.
Like, out of like concern for the clients, like,
Well, the clients, the clinician, like, is it easier? I mean, for me, right, when I went all portable with my practice and I knew I was going to be like in different places all the time, it was like the traveling therapist thing. I was like, I don't want these really heavy, intense, like PTSD, EMDR, you know, crisis type clients anymore. Like, that they don't really fit with what I'm doing. So I was just wondering, like, is there consideration that goes into that? Like, what kind of niche or how intense your caseload should be if you're like planning this type of like in and out with a lot of kids and that sort of thing, you know?
You know, I think it's going to be different for each person, because I think there are people who don't have kids who they're like, I could never imagine working with that population. That sounds too overwhelming. That sounds too stressful, right? And then there's other people who are like, give me all the trauma, give me all the PTSD. So I think some of it is preference, some of it is comfortability level. I mean, you work all online, I do too. And there's definitely like a certain level of acuity that regardless of whether I had kids or not, I'm just not going to be seeing in my practice because of that. I don't have access to them the same way. But what I will say is that depending on what your experience is in pregnancy, depending on what your experience is in birth or postpartum, can change who you want to work with, how you want to work. And what I mean by that, you know, if you have a birth that results in a NICU stay, you may have a really hard time working with other parents who also have a child in the NICU. Or you may feel like this is now my area of genius because I can relate to that. I know a lot of people who, after they have had children, struggle working with kids. Before having kids, they're like, I loved working with kids, but it's almost like, okay, I'm dealing with children in my practice and at home.
Yeah, it's too much.
And it's just too much, right? So I think if you are someone who likes working with trauma, like, you know that before you have kids. And to just be prepared that there may just be certain kinds of trauma that may be just harder for you. That, like, if you've had a birth trauma, you may be too triggered to work with birth trauma yourself, or with, you know, types of abuse or things like that. And so that's one of the things I talk about on my podcast, is really assessing, like, what is your capacity, and being honest with that. That, like, if you're finding this is feeling like too much, to get your own therapist, even like during your pregnancy, definitely postpartum, because stuff just hits you differently in ways that you're like, why am I crying over this thing that I like was fine supporting a client with before? It just can hit differently. So it's not to say that like, yes, you're definitely going to need to change your niche. It may not. It may help you
right.
refocus your niche. But just to continuously check in with yourself, like, does this feel manageable? Does it feel like I'm able to show up for my family and for my clients in a way that is healthy for everybody?
That's amazing. Yeah, such a good answer. It's better than just change your niche to an easy one.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I like that a lot.
Because every niche has its like challenges, but that it may be like, okay, I needed to put a certain type of caseload or area of focus on pause while I do my own work around that. And I'll just speak real quick to the client side of that too, that like, I, when I have taken maternity leave, I've always offered a couple of different options. I've been very clear when I'm on leave, I'm not available for sessions. If you need something as far as like a referral, you can reach out to me. But I always have offered one of a couple of things, that either I can help connect them specifically to somebody that they can be actively working with while I'm on leave, that I can give them a list of referrals that if they want to ever self-refer while I'm away, they can, or they can just choose to wait it out. And I've had people do everything, right? And then I've had some people, when I come back, say, I'm ready to come back to you, or I want to continue working with this other therapist. It really just depends. But for those clients that I knew like, hey, you're going through a lot right now, or like this is going to be a longer period of time since you're not going to have access to me, I'll talk with them about, I really think it would be beneficial to help you by seeing somebody else while I'm away. And I try to have like a transition session where I'm kind of consulting with this other provider. I may even like do a session with them if the client really is like anxious about the transfer, but trying to just help make it as easy as possible. And also giving them the tools that like, here are the crisis lines. Here is this information that if you are in crisis and I'm not available and I'm on leave, that you can access this. So your clients, which ones you may be like, yeah, they can probably hold out till I'm back. And the ones that you may have concerns about. And it's just working with them to figure out like, what would they feel most comfortable with, and what can you feel comfortable with clinically that like you can at least document, like, I've given them these options.
Yeah, right. Just like cover your bases with it. That's really smart. Yeah, such good advice. Thank you for talking about that. So something else we'd love to talk about on this podcast is technology and how it's making your life easier.
Yes.
Is there anything in your life, technology-wise, AI-wise, that is just like, I've got this system down and it just has cut out so much time for me, that you could share with people that does make it possible for you to be able to do all this stuff?
Yeah. Yeah. So after I had my third child, I had her the end of 2023. I didn't start seeing clients again until partway through 2024. And I was drowning with 3 kids. So I was starting to see clients again, but the thing that was not getting done was documentation for me. And it wasn't that I like didn't want to do it. Like for a while I was documenting right after sessions, but then we also were in the middle of a move. My baby was like not feeding well. It was very, very stressful. I was struggling with postpartum depression. And so the documentation just got kind of further and further and further behind. And I eventually caught up, but I was like, I can't keep doing this way, right? Like I can't be doing this late at night because I have no bandwidth. I am struggling to be able to do it during my work day because I've had to structure it so that I'm able to see the clients and then have the time for my family.
Yeah.
So after we had finally moved, I'd seen a lot of people, actually, you were one of them, talking about berries. And I was like, okay, skeptical a little bit of like AI. I want to make sure, I understand what this is. Like, what is this going to be doing with my clients' information and stuff? And I did my own research and like felt really comfortable the more that I learned about berries and like who they are as a company and like what they do with data, what they don't do with data. And started using that in like, I think October of 2024. And it's been a game changer for me. It has cut my documentation down, I mean, exponentially.
Wow.
being able to have like a formatted template in there that I know will pass an audit, that is clinically sound. I can go in and take the things out that I don't want there. I don't stress about that, right? And even if I like get behind and that I'm not finalizing the note today, I know it's still there, that I could go get it and put it in my chart. So that has been the biggest thing that has been so helpful in my practice, especially like the more kids we've had, we're done. But like, it's just not an added stress that I have of like, okay, I see this, I have the client, I have the session. And now when am I going to get the documentation done? Like, it's done. It's there.
I love that so much. Yes. Oh my gosh. I know. I mean, just anybody listening, even if you don't try berries, I don't care which one you try, but just try a HIPAA compliant SOC 2 level security AI note scribe. It will change your life. I mean, even the EHRs have got like versions of it. Not anywhere near as good as berries, in my opinion.
Right.
I mean, it is so much less stress. It is so much less stress to, just like you said, have that note in there. Did you make your own note, like use your own template, or have you like...
I took your template.
Oh, mine.
I took the template. Yes, I took your template, and I've adapted it a little bit. Okay. But I used your template that you have in there. And the thing that I love about it is, as I'm reading the note that it's producing, I'm like, this is so much better than anything that I could ever write, right? And it sounds like so much better. And that I'm like, I know if I ever got audited, it would pass the audit. I know that if I want to make things more vague, because I have some clients that I'm like, there are certain things I don't want included in there. I can do that. I can make it as vague as I want it to while still being clinically sound.
Yeah.
And so again, it's not this stress. I mean, how many times have you like sat at the keyboard, be like, okay, how do I say this piece, or like make it relevant? And it just does such a good job of that, like you said, I've tried other, in EHR system kind of AI tools, and it's just not compared to berries.
I totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree. That is so awesome. I mean, of course I know all the tools in there and everything, but I never thought about it like that, especially because you see like military spouses, right? Yeah. So you probably do want to be a little less graphic in all the details and that magic edit to be able to say like, make it vague, more vague.
Yeah. I can say, take out names, make this more concise. I mean, I also work in the perinatal population too. And just with reproductive health for women, we have to be very vague with a lot of things too. And so it helps with that, right? That like, it may say, here's exactly what happened. And I'm like, nope, that's too much. Make it more concise, take out the names, change pronouns, and it's just done.
Wow. I love that. Yeah, I love that too.
And it saves so much time.
And every day we just released another new feature. Like every week we've got new features coming out. So it's just amazing to me that we've got this. Like I wish I had had this 25 years ago when I started as a therapist.
For sure. Well, and also, I'll be honest, like if I did have to go back to writing it by hand, I actually think that this is helping me to think through it a little bit differently.
Yes.
Like seeing how the note is put together. You're a licensed clinical social worker. I don't know what your program was like. Mine did not do a great job of teaching us documentation.
No.
Write a SOAP note, but like really, what are you doing? And so I feel like it, in some ways, it's just helping to reinforce like what good clinical documentation looks like, or what it or is really.
Yes. Yeah, I could not agree more. Amazing. So what would you like to leave everybody with that's listening today? If you had like just like one piece of advice for like maybe new moms or somebody that's thinking about becoming a mom in private practice and that sort of thing, what would you like to just kind of leave with them?
So the thing that I just want everybody, whether you want to do online work, whether you want to have children or not, whether you are like, I want a small private practice or I want a group practice, whatever it is to not be afraid to build your practice how it works for you. Mm-hmm. We are so comparative and we see somebody else do something one way and we're like, well, that's the way I have to do it. And you look at that and you're like, but that doesn't work for me because that's not the schedule I need. So like, how would I make this work? If it doesn't work for you to see clients during the day and it works for you to see them from 8 o'clock till midnight, there are clients waiting to see you 8 o'clock till midnight.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So like if you want to build a practice in a different way that looks unique, whether you're traveling, whether you want to work in multi-states, whether you want to work with like a really specific niche, don't be afraid to go for it. Just because it's not been done doesn't mean it can't be done. And you have to make the decisions about like what this practice looks like that is best for you. Nobody else is like paying your bills. Your finances are getting covered by what you're making. And so you need to just really think about like, how will this practice actually serve my life versus, okay, well, I have to like build my life around work, which is what I think a lot of times we really have to do when we are working in kind of traditional employment.
Yes. We have this gift to be able to just go out there on our own and design these practices exactly with what we need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not be afraid to do that.
Yeah. If you design it, the clients will come. The ones that want to see you from 8 to midnight will show up. They'll be like, oh my God, I never thought I'd find a therapist that could do this.
Yeah. I mean, I've talked with other clinicians who are like, yeah, I couldn't believe how many people wanted to see me at 11 o'clock at night. And I'm like, they are there. Like, if that's what works for you, I promise you there is somebody waiting for you.
Build it, they will come.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Well, Ashley, thank you so much for coming today. Where do people find you if they want to reach out, talk to you, work with you? Yeah.
So you can find my podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You can find me on Instagram at Raised to Empower, or check out my website, raisedtoempower.com. I have a lot of resources and tools and resources there. And there's also a link on Instagram for all that too. So any of those places they can find me.
Awesome. And we'll have that free guide you were talking about for the podcast episodes.
Yeah, it's like a playlist of like maternity leave specific episodes.
That's awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.